Good evening, and welcome to the February 6th meeting of the governing body. We're running a little bit late. We had a previous meeting that we needed to address first, so we'll get into this meeting now. If you will, and I'll call this meeting to order, if you will give your attention, I believe, to Councilman Dover, who will provide the invocation this evening. Stand as you are able, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have Topeka Police Department Chaplain Randy Lesky. Chaplain Lesky is retired from Central Park Christian Church after 17 years of service. He also serves as the Department of Correction at the Department of Corrections for Shawnee County, and he serves as the lead chaplain at the Topeka Police Department. He's also currently serving at Presbyterian Manor Nursing Home as the in-house chaplain. Doesn't really sound like somebody that's retired, but we're happy to have him here. Chaplain?
Thank you for this privilege and honor. Pray with me, please. Father in heaven, I thank you for keeping us. I thank you for watching over us. And I thank you, Father, for the dedicated service that we have with one another. I thank you for the oneness that you provide with us. And I just ask now, Father, your guidance and leadership and protection on this city and as individuals. And I thank you for keeping us in your care. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move on now to our roll call.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Councilmembers Hiller.
Here.
Valdivia Acala.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Banks.
Here.
Kell.
Here.
Miller. Dobler.
Here.
Duncan. Oh, he's here, isn't he? And Hofer.
Here.
All right, we have 9 present.
Thank you. We'll move on now to the agenda. I have 2 presentations. Brenda?
The first one is the lead and copper rule improvements compliance, and Sylvia Davis, Utilities Director, will be presenting.
Mayor and governing body, I'm happy to introduce Sylvia Davis, our Utilities Director, as you know, and she's going to talk to you about a lead and copper rule improvement. It's not a new rule. It's a rule we've had for years, and it's been done in phases. But we're at a critical point with this rule in all cities, not just Topeka. And she will explain what has to be done and who's going to do it.
Thank you. Good evening, governing body. Let's dive into lead and copper a little bit. I have tried to make this brief and try to take it in small pieces, because when we talk regulations, it gets really technical and complicated really fast, and this lead and copper rule is no different. So we'll start tonight, and then we anticipate coming back in front of you guys multiple times throughout the next year at least to explain where we're at in our process and how the city's looking in terms of compliance. Can they see this presentation? Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so in 1991, EPA established the lead and copper rule to protect public health and safety by reducing lead levels in drinking water. The lead and copper rule sets action levels and requirements for monitoring and control of lead for municipal water suppliers throughout the country. As part of that, the city of Topeka is required to sample for lead and copper and other contaminants in lots of different ways, but specifically lead and copper, we are required to sample every 3 years. I think that I want to make sure I emphasize that the water leaving the water treatment plant is virtually free of lead when it goes into our distribution system. It's what happens when that goes through the system and what is in the service lines that impacts lead levels in drinking waters for our customers, or it can impact that. So I'll explain that a little bit more at the end of our presentation, but the most important parts tonight are the rule, as the city manager said, was established in 1991. There's been a couple different revisions. They're still working on those, but in 2021, they enacted the lead and copper rule revisions, which were a complicated set of guiding principles, I should say. And then in 2023, they started working on what EPA is referring to as the lead and copper rule improvements. So those are improvements made to the revisions that help clarify and simplify what they're asking us to do. So you can see the complexity grows exponentially. The public comment, the national public comment, just closed on the proposed ruling. So I want to preface all of this by saying that is still proposed, and we are yet to hear what the final recommendations or requirements will be. But we have a really good idea of where we're going, and that's why we've been working hard to get a jump on this. Like the city manager said, lots of communities are in this same boat, and we're all about the same place here. So next slide. I wanted to highlight 4 major proposed requirements of the improvements. The first one was spelled out in that 2021 lead and copper rule the revision, and that laid out the requirement of cities or drinking water suppliers to create an inventory of their system. So they said, just you guys need to know. If you guys have read anything or heard anything about this new rule, you will get really quickly a lot of criticism about the fact that many municipalities or water suppliers don't know what their system is constructed out of. Fortunately for the city of Topeka, we know 90%, approximately 90% of our system, what that is. We verified that. We have that on meter cards that we've been keeping for decades. So as we go out and make improvements to our system, as we replace different meters, we're constantly updating those meter cards, and we have been collecting that in hard paper copy, and then now we've of course digitized that, and we have an inventory that we are now working to refine. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. However, by October of 2024, we fully anticipate more definitive verbiage to spell out what exactly that inventory is going to require. So we've got a really great head start. We are working with consultant Black & Veatch. Bartlett & West is partnering with them a little bit as well. So we have a great start to that inventory, and we are working on a bigger plan of action in terms of how we are going to comply with the rest of the regulations that come out with those improvements. Some of what you might ask tonight, we may not have answers for you simply because that is not completely formalized. And as you know, with all federal regulation, depending on who it might be in office and how this all plays out, we may continue to see some changes there. The second point I wanted to make is that this new proposed requirement improvements will include new testing for elementary schools and childcare facilities. That comes with a 5-year time frame if things go into regulations as they are currently proposed. It also requires a replacement plan for known city water lines constructed with lead materials within a 10-year time frame. And it requires a much more active role in public education and messaging about lead in drinking water. So those are 4 big changes or improvements that they are proposing. Next slide. Like I said, we know approximately 90% of our distribution system, public and private, and what that is constructed of. That last 10% we're referring to as the unknowns, and our next effort in this process is trying to verify what those unknowns are. And we're going to do that with a few different approaches. One is having city staff make sure they're aware of what lines are classified as unknowns, so that if they're out there performing work, whether it's a water main break or replacing a meter, we can get them to go ahead and put eyes on that and verify what is at that location. We also are using contractors who are out there doing some of that same work. If they can give us feedback and let us know what they're replacing in the system, that is very helpful as well. And then last but not least, we are hoping to get some more information from our customers themselves. So today, you all saw a press release that said the city is going to be surveying their unknown lines. That survey is going to go out just to those that we have no information, a lack of meter card for. That's our first approach. We're just going to throw it out there and say, if you can do this and you have that information, we'd love to have it. Again, we're still waiting for that ruling to come to tell us and confirm how exactly we're going to prove that out. But if we can get some information from our customers, that's going to be very helpful. It will include graphics like the one that is on the screen and instructions of where to find this in your home, how to verify what it might be. It will direct customers to use this QR code that goes to our online survey. We completely understand that not everybody might have the resources or might be technically savvy enough to do this. So we are also going to be making ourselves available to NIAs, general constituents that might have struggles doing this. We want to make sure that we're open and out there and available to people to help gather this information as much as we can. We don't want to alarm everybody. However, just talking about lead in drinking water is by nature alarming, but this is our first attempt at gathering some of that information and reducing that 10% a little bit lower, so that when we go out and attempt to verify the rest, we can do that in a timely manner and get our inventory completed. Next slide. So where are we at with overall compliance with these proposed regulations? Like I said before, we're working with our consultant. We're trying to finalize that communications plan. We're getting ready to roll this survey out. It is going to be sent out in English and Spanish. And then we will make sure that we have all of these updates on our website, topeka.org/utilities/drinking water quality. There you can find information on our water quality reports every year, our annual water quality reports, the instructions for sampling. So even if you have a known, if your address is known to us already, you might be curious what that is and just verify it for yourself. Instructions on how to do that will be found at this website. And then as we continue to formalize our plan and roll that out for everyone, we'll keep updates there. We also are working on that plan to start with schools and childcare facilities. We've had several reach out to us already, as there's funding available for them to upgrade their service lines. And then we are also staying on top of the search and hunt for dollars to help customers fund this if they do find that they have lead in their system. So that is a lot of information for you that I ran through. I want to, before I open it for question, just want to reemphasize the fact that we have been testing for lead in our system for many years. And we sample 50 sites throughout the city of Topeka where we have known parts or materials in service lines that are known to have lead. And if you want to get into limits, the current action level for lead is 15 parts per billion. And in 2023, I'm happy to tell you that our testing result was 2.4 parts per billion, so we are well under the current action level. And I hope that that provides you and your constituents a little bit of reassurance that this isn't a panic mode right now. We're just trying to fully vet out our inventory and make sure we know what's out there so we can make a plan to address that. So what questions?
Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple comments. This is an absolute awful federal unfunded mandate. And I think the problem with this has been that there aren't exceptions in what the feds have put down for cities that can identify what they've got and show that their levels are already safe and make for a plan. And that's been one of the complaints to the federal government. They've also provided, as Director Davis indicated, no funding for cities to do this. We are in a better position, both budget-wise and because we already have a pretty good idea of some of our inventory. There's a lot of cities throughout the state of Kansas that have no clue, and they don't even have the money to fund this piece of it, because this is one piece. The next part of this is going to be then a requirement under this mandate to now go in and replace all of these, even if they're deemed safe, and we're all going to want to hide under the desk when we see what that number looks like, right? One of the things we're trying to do at the League of Kansas Municipalities is talk with our congressional delegation. We get where they want us to go, but we don't like the time frame. And that's one of the things I want citizens to understand is this is a federal mandate. It is not the city of Topeka, when we have these conversations with you, driving this. And we are just as unhappy about it as citizens can be. So please reach out to your congressional folks and tell them that. We're also working with the state to see if we can create some sort of fund to help pay some kind of matching grant program that we could access. And the other thing is, I will say today, you may have noticed, some of you may have seen that Attorney General Kobach has actually joined 13 other states and filed something against the federal government to actually say, what are we doing? There needs to be exceptions. This is unfunded, the time frame, all these things that we're having issues with. So there's a lot here. But in the meantime, Director Davis and her staff are doing exactly what they've got to do, moving us forward. But I do want the citizens to understand that we have safe water, but we're going to do this anyway and try to work with you to work on those costs. But if you got complaints, please contact the elected people above us and complain to them. It will help the cause. Thank you, Mayor.
Further comments, questions? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilman Duncan and Sylvia. I guess the issue is, you say that we've tested our own water, and we know that the water that's going into people's pipes is okay. And we have inventoried 90%, but you didn't say what percent of that 90% has lead pipes in it. And so I'm curious what our volume is, at least in general terms, and also, when you mentioned the testing that you do, is that from the faucet inside a property? I mean, are we testing whether those lead pipes are affecting the water?
Yeah, let me clarify that. So we test both water leaving the plant out into our system, and then this lead-specific testing that we're doing at those 50 locations are out of the tap.
Okay.
Yep. Our inventory is complete in terms of knowing that we have about 90% known. I say about because we are counting how much of city service line do we know, how many meters do we know what that material is and the components going into and out of the meters, and then what is the material leaving the meter into the customer's home. So we have 57,300 plus meters in our system, right? If you take that and just divide it by 2 in terms of what the city line is versus what the private line is, it's not always the same. We might know what's on the city side, but not on the customer side, and vice versa. So that's why I say approximately 90%, because the answer is going to change if you ask me how many on the customer side after the meter is this, how many on the city side before the meter or through the meter is this. So I'm just telling you 90% because it's an average of all of that.
Okay, and not to put words in your mouth, but what you're saying is even when you're testing at the tap,
through known lines that might contain lead materials. So
Right.
for instance, lead solder, right? That counts as known lead. Though out of those 50 locations, that is the number that is well under the action level.
Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you so much for that clarification. Thank you, Mayor.
Other questions for Sylvia? But thank you, Sylvia, for the
Thank you.
explanation, and I think it's key that we make sure, and you did a good job here tonight, of indicating how good the water is here in Topeka and what good position we are in. I hope people will listen clearly and get that detail and not jump that, oh no, now we have a problem with lead in our water, because that's not the message that you gave tonight. And I think it's encouraging that we have been able to account for up to 90%. I mean, that's significant, I think.
Yeah.
So thank you for you and your
Sure.
staff for bringing this to our attention.
We'll be back in front of you as we go, and like I said, I stutter around a little bit on this. It's all, the clean water side is all fairly new to me, and I'm still learning, but you can see it's pretty complicated, and to try to simplify it is actually tough. But that's what we want to do and attempt to do, so if we can help clarify in any way, just let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a second presentation, City Manager.
Second presentation is by Dusty Nichols, the Director of Emergency Operations with Shawnee County, and he's going to talk to you about the emergency operations plan.
Good evening, Mayor, councilpersons. This is actually for a signature. I'm coming to you for a signature. It'll be on your 20th, your next agenda. But I did want to make myself available to answer any questions. I know this probably sounds really familiar because I was just here 6 months ago doing the exact same thing. The reason for the just coming back so soon, we were coming out of COVID and our cycle was thrown off at the state. They issue planning direction about every 3 years, and so we readjust our emergency operations plan. So we just did it 6 months to get caught back up, and then this will put us back on our normal cycle. So the emergency operations plan, if you're not familiar with it, we follow the guidance from the feds all the way down with National Incident Management System. We develop at the county level. The state obviously has one. The county level has one, and of course through your municipal code 15-271, you guys follow ours. So that's why I'm coming to you for the signature that you'll see on your 20th agenda. So not a real formal presentation, but that's why I'm here.
Questions for Dusty? Dusty, for the public who's watching, can you give us just a quick idea of the work of your organization, how it serves Shawnee County and the city, and in what manner your emergency management would come into play for something for the city?
I'm not quite understanding the question. I'm sorry.
Okay. Your position, emergency management, how is it funded?
Sure.
And when would your office or your emergency management come into play in some example of an emergency that you would address?
Okay. My position is actually directed to the county commissioners by the state. So I'm funded by the county. Most of our funding for personnel, as far as the emergency management team, comes from grants. So we get a grant mainly for the personnel that's in our office. We have 4 full-time, that's myself and 3 others, and then 1 part-time logistics person that all fall under grants. So that's how we fund the personnel. We work directly for the county commissioners. They're directed basically to hire and develop an emergency management team, which they have, and that's us. So we have a whole slew of responsibilities for countywide, which involves working with first responders, doing training. Well, we have mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery, and we follow those kind of guidance. So under mitigation, we have the mitigation plan, which we've discussed here at the City Council as well. And we try to work with organizations to mitigate or lessen the effects of those things that could happen to us in this region. We develop a THIR, which is a threat hazard identification risk assessment, to identify those things so we know to put for a major effort. And then we work with our first responders from all across the county and all the cities, not just Topeka, obviously, but Rossville, Silver Lake, et cetera. We are a mutual aid state, so we also help outside of our county wherever it's needed. internal to the county, again, we provide guidance, training, notification systems like the tornado sirens. We work with the Weather Service, so we do the county-wide picture. Now, specifically for the county, we develop our CERT team, our Community Emergency Response Team, where we train residents from all over the county to be volunteers, trained volunteers in the case there's a large-scale disaster. Similar to any other jurisdiction that's managing these, we have points of contact in each one of those jurisdiction cities that we go to. Obviously, we go through Richard on this particular, for the city. Anything dealing with the city, we go straight to him. So that's kind of how we would work specifically. As far as internal to the county, we do the county operations plan, and we make sure all the departments do their COOPs, and we assist them. We also do the continuity of government at the county level. So anything that's a countywide emergency, that is a multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional. Those first responders will automatically go into action. And if it's going to be a multi-day type thing and they run out of resources, that's where we come in, and we talk to the state to get additional resources. And you saw a lot of that during COVID. And we had put together an incident command team that was a mix of private industry, city people, county people, and we managed that emergency that way. So that's kind of a real high overview snapshot.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, or Councilman Banks?
Sure.
Dusty, I was wondering, is the COVID situation still affecting your operation?
Not mine specifically. I turned it back over to the health department. I was in command up until October of 2022, and then switched it back to the health department. They are still dealing with COVID, and I think we all are to an extent. But as far as the restrictions at the time are much more lenient now. We've got a hold of it, and it's turned into an epidemic versus pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Council, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so my brain's a little bit foggy tonight. So Dusty, you didn't make a presentation. What exactly are you letting us know tonight? Because I may have a backup question.
Yes, ma'am. We have an emergency operations plan that we have to write and keep current, and we review it every 3 years. COVID threw that cycle off. I was just here about 6 months ago doing the exact same thing I'm doing now. I'm just letting you guys know it's not this normally short of a period. This will put us back on our 3-year cycle. So the action that I need the council to do is to make sure this document is signed on your 20th agenda. So I'm standing here asking for you to review that if need be. Your counselor as well, the city attorney's aware of it as well. If you want to see that EOP, it is on our website, snco.us/EM. On the left side, you'll see plans. Then you'll see the emergency operations plan.
Got it. Now I have clarity. So by that form that you're talking about, that you need the city approval on, that in no way, shape, or form, just to clarity for people that I've been talking to a lot about emergency preparedness in community, that in no way, shape, or form is bringing you closer into doing emergency management for the city. Is that correct?
It does not change my responsibilities to any city within Shawnee County. We will do the same as we always have. I encourage you to look at that. I think it's page 28, where it talks specifically about the city's functions, I guess, within the EOP. And it's under your municipal code for Topeka, 15-271. So those two will mirror each other, but it goes in a little bit more detail in our EOP.
Okay. Then I'm going to look that over.
Sure.
But I was talking, as we're in preparation for CERT that's coming into Oakland at Lundgren this coming weekend and the weekend after, I was talking to your guy, and we had quite a bit of conversation. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that he told me that you all were paid by the majority of grants. Mm-hmm. But yet I'm getting from the city that the city pays for, in some way, mysterious calculations that I'm sure are real. I just haven't seen them up front and personal. And we all know that, or at least I know, that I think it's really important that we get an emergency preparedness position. It doesn't sound like there's the juice out there, which is not your concern. I'm just saying this so everybody else can hear it, a lot of juice out there, for maybe an emergency management position. I don't know yet, but I'm just trying to get clarity on if there has been any overture that you're aware of, anybody from the city talking to you, or commissioners that you're aware of about helping the city out in emergency preparedness response. That's just basically a yes or no question.
I'm not sure how to answer it. I've heard that as far as from the commissioners that asked me, and I'm aware of that, but it doesn't change our duties. We work for
Okay,
the county.
but I mean, coming on board to help the city, since we are lacking to have a position right now. Nothing
No.
that you're,
No.
that's all I needed to know. Thank you,
You bet.
Mayor.
Any other questions for Dusty? Okay. Thank you, sir. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay, move on to item number 3, Brenda.
A is a approval of a public works engineering contract between the City of Topeka and Cook, Flatt, and Strobel Engineering, PA, in the amount not to exceed $77,000 for engineering services. B are minutes of the regular meeting of January 16 and the special meeting of January 17, 2024. And there is one cereal malt beverage application for Cypress Ridge located at 2533 Southwest Urish Road, and staff is recommending approval.
Okay. You've heard the consent agenda is read. Okay, have a
Second.
motion to approve by Councilwoman Ortiz, seconded by Councilman Duncan. Are we at that point still now, or do we do roll call?
Roll call. Yep.
Okay, roll call.
Council members Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akla,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Kell.
Yes.
All right, we have 9 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Move on now, Brenda, to action items, agenda item number 4.
A is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager Richard Neinstead concerning exterior property area maintenance provisions of the International Property Maintenance Code, amending sections 80, 60, 140, 070, and 08 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original sections.
Mr. City Manager?
So, Mayor and governing body, this has to do with vegetation over 12 inches, any vegetation over 12 inches. Turns into shrubs, trees, vines, and at 12 inches, then the exterior property maintenance code takes over, and our people go out and enforce that being over 12 inches. And I think this is I think that Council Member Hiller's committee has worked a long time with us. At least through several growing seasons.
Okay, Councilwoman, do you have anything to offer?
Only a slight clarification. Yes, we have many growing seasons, lots of discussion about when the right time was to introduce this. The wording has been done for some time. Department head John Chardine brought it to the committee toward the end of last year and said, we're ready to go. And we said, okay. I think based on, as I understand it, legal's discussion with John, what you've got before you is the amendments to the city's property maintenance code to add these vegetation pieces in. That's what's up for a vote today. There is a corresponding document that is set up as an SOP, as standard operating procedures, that specifies a 3-year phase-in for this, so that there would be a lot of education in the first 2 years, and full enforcement would occur beginning the 3rd year. So just to be aware of that, we put this forward last week in discussion only, had some questions. I've not had any questions since then. We checked a little bit last week to see. So I'm not aware of any, unless anybody else is. I think this is ready to go, and I'm happy to move to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve by Councilwoman Hiller.
Second.
Second by Councilman Duncan. If you call the roll, please.
Council members Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz, Banks,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
and Dobler.
Yes.
All right, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to action item B.
B is selection of one city council voting representative to serve a 3-year term on the Friends of Topeka Zoo FOTZ Board of Directors.
Okay, city manager? Or,
I will turn this over to the city attorney.
okay. I've got a piece here that I can read here. For this portion of this item, pursuant to the Friends of Topeka Zoo Board of Directors bylaws and the master lease agreement, one Friends of the Topeka Zoo board member shall be a City of Topeka City Council member, representative, appointed by the City of Topeka governing body to serve a 3-year term. Currently, Councilmember Duncan serves on the board. Councilmember Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things have been on the last few years. When we first started this, God, 3 years ago now almost. That's kind of amazing that the zoos made that transition. Councilmember Lesser was our initial representative. Upon his resignation, I took the seat. We also, just as a reminder, have several staff members, appointees from our Public Works and Finance departments, which currently are our Public Works Director and our Interim Finance Director serving in those roles. So this isn't the only city position there. At this point, I say this a lot with lots of boards. I think at some point you need to move on to the next person. So with that, and I know we're open to any nominations this evening, who that would be, but I would like to nominate Councilmember Hofer to fill my seat on that board.
Okay. Okay, nominations for Councilwoman Hofer to sit on the board. Councilwoman, would you accept that nomination if appointed?
Yes, I will, and I feel kind of like this is my district, and it's something that I should represent if everybody's agreeable to that.
Any other nominees? Councilman Banks,
I'd like to nominate Councilman Kale.
okay. Councilman Kell?
Yes, I accept, and the zoo is something I've been very passionate about for many years and want to see it grow as much as possible.
Okay. Councilman Dobler?
I'll move the nomination seat.
Okay. Nominations are now closed. So Brenda, do we want to take each nominee?
I think what we'll do, since we have Hofer and Kell, I'll just call a name and you can tell me which person you would like to vote for. Will that work?
All right.
All right, we'll start with Councilmember Hofer.
Hofer.
Mayor Padilla.
Hofer.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Hofer.
Valdivia Aquila,
Kell.
Ortiz,
Hofer.
Banks,
Kale.
Kale,
Kel.
Dobler,
Hofer.
and Duncan.
Hofer.
Okay. Councilmember Hofer received 6 votes and Kell received 3. So Councilmember Hofer will serve on the board.
Okay. Thank you for accepting the appointment. And Councilman Kell, I would offer that if you still have that interest, certainly visit and work with Councilwoman Hofer, Councilman Duncan.
Just a reminder, we can, anytime any of us show up to those meetings as ex officio members to participate, voice, can't take a vote, but I guarantee you, especially right now, they would be more than happy to have any of us who want to show up, so.
There you go. Okay, thank you. Councilman Ortiz.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hofer, your first duty, go to 6 and Gage, there's a fence down. I did tell the other person that's the former person that sat on that board, that big old fence is down. Can you please see that we get that put back up?
As long as it's not the bear fence, we're good.
Can you please do that for me? Because I was so ready for him to get off.
So ready. Ouch.
And I'd also like to know how much money Zoo Lights meant. I've asked him, and he said at least $1. So he did not do his job.
Okay, we'll move on to action item 4C. Brenda?
C is discussion and possible action of a resolution introduced by interim city manager Richard Neinstead regarding additional funding for operations and maintenance of Hotel Topeka.
City Manager.
Mayor and governing body, I'm pleased to have before you again Braxton Copley, the Public Works Director, and Rochelle Matthews, the Interim Finance Director, who will talk to you about this request of $500,000.
Braxton.
Thank you. Just to lay the stage, prior to the city purchasing the Topeka Development Corporation, we identified that there were going to be some operational and some capital needs for the hotel. At that time, the governing body did a grant or gave us authority to the TDC to spend up to $500,000. To this point, we have largely exhausted that. We have a operational funding request of $227,000 from GF Hotels to get us through the end of February. And we also have identified a number of additional capital needs. And for that, we're respectfully requesting another $500,000 of authority from the City Council to the TDC to be able to fund ongoing operational and critical capital needs for the Topeka Development Corporation for Hotel Topeka. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Braxton or for Rochelle? Is there a motion for the chair to entertain?
Move approval.
Move to approve by Councilman Dobler. Is there a second? I will second that motion. Brenda, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council Members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Acla,
No.
Ortiz. No. Banks,
No.
Kale,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
and Hofer.
Yes.
All right, we have 6 yes with council members Valdivia Acla, Ortiz, and Banks voting no. The motion carries.
Okay. Okay, it's the end of our action items. We'll move on now to non-action items on the agenda. Brenda?
Discussion concerning the relocation of the city's light-duty fleet garage.
City Manager.
So, Mayor and governing body, a little bit of history. The construction of the Pope Quincy Viaduct is going to require the closure and the demolition of the light-duty fleet garage next year in the first quarter. I believe the state's given some relocation money to the city, and what the Public Works Director is here to talk to you about is what happens when that garage is demolished and where do we go?
Okay. Director Copley?
So again, this has been a 3-year journey in terms of when the state initially came to us and said that as part of the Pope Quincy Viaduct, they were going to need to demolish the garage. During the 3 years, there have been multiple questions that have been asked in terms of, is it cost efficient for us to operate the garage? Should we look at leasing vehicles? Should we look at replacing some vehicles? Should we look at contracting with a third party? So we have been down a long road, and basically what we're hoping to get from you is some direction, and we're going to share some facts in terms of, I believe that we do an exceptional job in terms of cost-effective provision of services to the city staff. I know that in my conversations with the police chief and the fire chief, they absolutely support me and support our request that we maintain those services in-house, that we can control those, as opposed to relying on third parties, because we're not paying profit, we're not paying taxes, we're paying a less wage in many cases. We're actually able to provide a more cost-effective service to our customers, our internal city customers. That is an overview. I've got Jason Tryon, Deputy Director Tryon, with me, who is by far the subject matter expert. And so when we have the hard questions, I will defer those to Jason. and I'll basically walk through the presentation. As has been indicated, we have no choice in this matter. PQV is going to require the demolition of the light-duty garage, and so we need to find another option. So the things that we have looked at over the last 3 years, should the city maintain internal repair and maintenance? Should we outsource that to an external, or should we go continue doing it internal? If we go internal, should we either find an existing building or bare dirt and build a new one? Do we lease or do we purchase? So those are really the policy questions for this body. Again, what we're talking about is the light duty shop, which is the garage there at the PD. And first and foremost, what are we servicing at that shop? What's the overall cost of making repairs internally? And then how does that compare to outsourcing to a third party? So we have 3 facilities. We have the EM, or the equipment maintenance shop, which is at 201. We have the heavy duty, which is basically the big fire apparatus. And then we have light duty. The light duty shop maintains 477 vehicles and 74 pieces of equipment, which would include things like trailers, right? So our total budget for the light duty shop is $767,000. In terms of what they do, this is a dedicated group. We're staffed, ideally staffed for 5. We have 1 vacancy. So these guys are taking care of vehicles that are up to 30 years old. We have 64 different makes and models, 153 different make and model years. And then obviously the big one that we have are the police Ford Explorers, and we have 140 of those in service. And you see just the variety in terms of light duty, from light duty trucks, vans, SUVs, auto, motorcycle, and average mileage of 50,000 and average age of 8.6 years. So what do our guys do? Well, they do everything, right? So PM is about 22%, and I will just stop there for a second and get you guys all on the same page. So the ideal fleet maintenance, PM, which is preventative maintenance, to CM, which is corrective maintenance, the ideal mixture of that is 80% of your time you're doing PM. You're changing oil, you're servicing things so that it doesn't break, and 20% of the time you're doing corrective maintenance. Well, based on the age of our fleet and the condition of it, we're doing almost 80% corrective maintenance to 20% preventative maintenance, right? That's just the reality of where we are. If we had a robust funding source that we could churn our fleet every 2 to 3 years, whether lease purchase or new purchase, then we would be much closer to that 80% PM, and it would be a different conversation that I would be having with you guys, because then third-party contract maintenance and reduction of staff would definitely be viable, but it's not where we are right now, given the aging condition of our fleet. So the other things that our guys are doing is repair and replacement, diagnosing, upfitting, decommission, and then indirect costs, which would include if they've got to go get parts, they've got to transport a vehicle, they're cleaning up shop, they're going through training. Those are the sorts of things that are indirect. So one of the efficiencies that we have is that as we decommission, our guys are like little scavengers, right? They will pick off bits and pieces, knowing that we have things that are like a door that would get dinged. And the great example that Jason came up with was one of our police cruisers, 84, was in an accident, came into the shop at 9:30. The accident involved damage to their door. Guys were able to go grab a salvage door that they had put back in stock, and by 1 o'clock, they've rolled that vehicle back out on the street. right? Our cost, $242 in terms of the labor cost to turn that. Had we gone to a third party to have that door replaced, we're looking at $1,600 to $1,800, and I guarantee you it wouldn't have been back on the street by 1 o'clock that same day. So efficiency of our shop, one of the questions we've been asked is, well, how efficient are you guys? You know, they're government employees. Clearly, they're not doing anything, right? So I don't agree with that. Our guys are incredibly efficient. They're incredibly hardworking. They're diligent. They care about what they do. So the metric that's out there is a VEU, which is a vehicle equivalent unit. So the standard is 90 to 100 VEUs per mechanic. Well, we are at, if we had all 5 positions filled, we're at 186.3 VEUs per mechanic. And right now we're short 1 mechanic, so we only have 4 in that light duty shop. So our guys are, in my opinion, they're efficient, they're hardworking. These are good employees. We're lucky to have them. So there are some things that it's more efficient for us to contract than to do, because either the cost of the diagnostic equipment, the cost of the equipment, the skill level, or the amount of time that it takes. So the things that we contract out, painting, body work, specialty diagnosis, transmission rebuilds, alarm system, vehicle window tinting. So basically, for last year, it was about $104,000 out of a $770,000 budget that we contracted with third parties because it made sense, right? And then in terms of Brian does periodically go out there and he will ask for costs because we want to make sure that we are doing a good job of, and we're being efficient in terms of what we're doing and comparing to third parties. So you see these 5 different items were all for a common things that are done on a 2020 Ford Explorer, and basically what our internal cost is versus what the low bid is that he was able to get, and then what the percentage savings. And you see that on all of these items, we are lower than what the third party charges. So some of the things that even if we were to close up all the shops and basically say, we're going to just contract with third parties, which I don't agree with, there would still be additional costs that we would need staff to do, or we would have additional administrative costs that we would have to contract with. And that includes the tag management, vehicle registration, the fuel cards, procurement, sale, disposal, all of that stuff needs to be done. And currently we're doing that with our existing staff. Brian and his team are taking those responsibilities. But you're looking at $120,000 of additional things that we would either continue to do in-house or would have to be additionally contracted with a third party that would not be traditional service that would be provided by a Laird Noller or a Jiffy Lube or a third-party vendor. So we were asked to also reach out to all of the government entities. Jason and his team did, and not surprising, none of the government entities were really interested in partnering with us to have some kind of joint facility. And then, as we've already repeated many times, our provision of the service is more efficient, more cost-effective than contracting with a third party. So at the end of the day, our recommendation is to keep the services in-house. In my mind, what makes the most sense is to construct a new facility of 16 bays on the parking lot that's already tax-exempt property that the city owns immediately south of the Holiday Building, so we stay centrally located close to PD, which is one of our better customers, as well as Holiday City Hall. And the initial cost estimate that we have from our architect is $5.5 million to do that. KDOT has currently offered us 2.3. We have put together additional requests to KDOT totaling a little over $800,000 for some items that we had not included in the initial round of negotiations with them as to the value of that. One of those big ones is the grit oil separator. And so we're waiting on their determination. If they agree to that additional request, that takes our funding gap down to $2.4 million. I've had conversations with the acting finance director in terms of the availability and whether it would fit within the existing policy for that to come out of year-end balance in terms of funding that, so that we're not having to bond and pay interest on that. So that's our recommendation. And with that, Jason and I will gladly stand for any questions that you have.
Questions for Braxton? Councilman Dobner.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question and a comment. I think the question is for the city manager and his staff. What's our schedule for the CIP discussion for 2025, I guess? Any?
Can I help out?
You bet.
The finance is going to kick off the general conversation the first week in March, and that will be followed. The second week in March will be the presentation by utilities. Third meeting in March will be utilities, and then after we get through those first three sessions, then I think that will give finance a little better idea in terms of how many additional sessions do we need to have in terms of action in April, hopefully, or possibly pushing it out into May, depending on where the governing body is.
And that is the CIP.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Thank you. So just a comment, couple of comments, I guess, at this point. I've probably asked more questions about this facility than anybody over the last couple of years. I feel good at this point that we've vetted everything. We've looked at outsourcing. Braxton did a good idea of really walking us through why, even though on the surface that makes a lot of sense, really doesn't make sense for the city of Topeka at this juncture. We've looked at other buildings. They all, the ones that are out there have some issues. It does appear that building new, as much as I hate to admit, is probably the right thing to do. And to add on to that, we're just under a time crunch. We've got to do something. So we definitely need to get started. What I want to do, and I realize we can't wait till the CIP is complete before we approve this. This needs to happen probably next week or whenever it's up. But I would like us, as we look at the existing CIP, I think there's some projects out there. This is a bigger discussion, so I'm not going to get into it very far tonight. But I think there's some projects that were put in there a year or two ago that really deal with housing and those sorts of things that we need to redirect. And I think we can actually get rid of probably a fairly expensive project or two that's in the CIP, which will allow us to put and you may tell us that we're going to pay for this out of reserves or whatever, but nonetheless, it does need to go in the CIP no matter what the funding source is. And I think we can look at some options that will not increase our CIP as it now stands. So I'll be kind of pushing that as we go through the next few weeks to take a look at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Braxton, with the need to be out in the first quarter, do we have the time to build a new facility? And I mean, the wherewithal we have, that's a short amount of time.
That is correct. So even if I had authority right now and I could enter into a design build contract, I'm looking at a year and a half, right? So in the meantime, we are going to have to find another facility, whether it's a city facility or a facility to lease, to be able to continue to serve our customers, right? Because we have to maintain that level of service. And so honestly, we've been paralyzed. We've not been able to take an action because we've had so many questions in terms of which way to go, whether we continue to do it as an internal service or we contract with a third party. So if, hopefully we get some direction in terms of, yes, we think that this is the way to go. We agree with you, and that we can start moving forward in terms of once we get a project approved in the CIP, to put a RFP out for design build to move forward on that track. But in the meantime, we then will have to look for a temporary facility to get us through. KDOT has offered 3 stalls. 3 stalls doesn't get it done for us. We have 16 stalls right now in our facility, and we use them all.
Further questions? City Manager.
Braxton, would this project lend itself to a design-build process?
Absolutely. That would be my strong preference, to do it as design build.
Councilman Kell?
I really support the idea of keeping it in-house. As Braxton put up there earlier, the price of just being able to do things, the quick response, being able to have to do it, be able to have a quality of work and uniformity across the board. Because to me, if we take this out of house, we may take this to multiple places, or we may end up overburdening a business that if we ever take it back in-house, that business now is lost in the other business that it had over that time frame, and they're kind of stuck with with nothing at that point. We have some good employees that are doing some great things, great work, and I believe this is the best plan of action right here overall. Plus, it's on our time frame to get things fixed, where we're not looking at other mechanics saying, when can you get this in? It's one of those things we can prioritize our own work in-house. Thank you.
Ms. City Manager, do you have plans to bring this to the governing body soon as a action item?
As soon as we're ready to, we will.
Okay.
I think the timetable is short, so we need to get this before we go.
Councilman Duncan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to disagree slightly with the timetable. The current fleet garage has been there 30 years, and we're going to make this decision for the next 30 to 50 years. Mm-hmm. The idea that we've got a year if we don't do this or else, so just take what we give you, I don't buy into that. If we have to put out some additional funds for a year or two to rent some space and make it work, to make sure we make the right decision, then I'm okay with that. Because when you're building something this large, that costs this much, that's going to be there this long, don't just do it because you feel rushed. So I just want to put that out there. For me, this isn't a question of the staff. They do a wonderful job. I'm all for keeping it in-house. It's how we get to what facility we want to look at. On the list of stuff that you, government agencies you had talked to, I did not see Topeka Metro on there. Have you had any conversations with Topeka Metro?
Not specifically with Topeka Metro. They service a very different type of vehicle, and is, to my knowledge, their facility right now is as full as ours, but that's certainly something we can explore with them.
I bring that up because we forget that they're ours. They are our entity. We tax on behalf of them. They need a new garage, and they're in a location that if you talk to the riverfront folks will tell you it needs to go if you want to open up riverfront development. And I think if there's any opportunity to build a dual facility, we're really missing out on an opportunity if we don't at least have that conversation. They also can do something we can't with our fleet garage maybe, and that's access federal dollars to help build their garage. So that may also be an option if that's a possibility. So I don't want us to miss that opportunity to solve those two problems at once. I also hope that in the planning of it, there is some either expansion or infrastructure put in for future ability to add alternative energy use, whether that's going to be electric in the future that we decide, or whether that's natural gas of some kind. I just want to make sure that doesn't get overlooked in the design process, and that that's built into the space that we go into so that we have enough to expand. I am concerned about the location. I think that Holiday Building, at some point in the future, we may make a choice of whether we stay in that building or whether we want to expand that building. And once we put this next to it, we're locked. We're landlocked with Holiday. If we ever want to make expansions or improvements or add some more administrative offices to that area, so I'm concerned about what the impact of that would be. So I would like to know what land is left as we see a design in that spot. But to me, it's a missed opportunity. We have so many buildings in this town that need to come down. And if you tell me it's going to cost a little extra dollars to tear down a dilapidated property that we have all been wringing our hands over for the last decade because we can't get the dang thing torn down, I would really love us to spend that extra money, tear that darn place down, and build our fleet garage there. Because then we've done two things. We've gotten what we needed for our staff and for our city, but we've also taken care of a long-time problem. So I don't think maybe we've thought outside of that box in terms of not just what can we add on to, but what can go? What can we just tear down and build there? So I don't expect answers to all that tonight. I'm not asking for that tonight, but those, as I've looked through this plan and thought about it, those are some of the just concerns and issues that have popped up to me that I want to put in city manager, in your head, and in front of you folks, and you can provide me answers later or think through some of this if there are options. So, thank you very much.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Braxton. It sounds like we're making progress. I wanted to give you kudos and credit for the fact that surely I wasn't the only one who said, let's go back and find out a little more about how much money the various other relocatees got and make sure we ask for the most that we can get. And being up almost $1 million that would then come off of our expense, I really appreciate your work on that. Maybe there's still a little more we can do. Also, we are just now stepping into, piggybacking off some of these other comments, but doing a more creative job at looking for grants and so on. A structure of this type lends itself to solar panels on the roof that can support that, that facility and sometimes more than that. So I also know that if it sounds like there's consensus emerging that we should build, that at least helps you to be at first base on this decision making. I know that I've had it in mind since we've talked, and I've seen some pretty creative shop setups in some of these newer shops where instead of just having 16 bays all in one long line, they'll bring people in and then take the smaller vehicles off to the side. So I don't know how much time you've spent, given that this whole thing was so wide open, on looking at design, but to Councilman Duncan's point, maybe if at least you've got some consensus that there's support to build, we can work on some of those other elements. I also thought that we've been talking for a long time about moving, again, to Councilman Duncan's point, our own other shops out of the riverfront and elsewhere. And so if we've got enough land to do them all and put them all in one place, if that makes sense, then I would think that's something to consider as well at this juncture. What all of our garage needs are, not just this one immediate one. And there had been discussion of us going in with Metro, and in the dynamic core plan, that puts Metro on 8th Street so that they're convenient to their headquarters as well as downtown and kind of central to where their service area is. So it would be worth checking with them just to see what their progress they're making, for sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Councilwoman Hofer.
Braxton knows well that I come around to a new build being the best option for us. We can customize it to what we want. My concern still is, how well have we researched what we really need as far as the number of bays? I can't quite get my mind around needing 18 bays. And is there a way to start maybe smaller, something more reasonable that we can build in a quicker time frame, but is able to expand even if it's in two directions, so we can add on for MTAA, our heavy duty fleet, whatever fleet it is, but I want the ground to be able to handle more expansion if that's what we desire to do, and it would probably be to our advantage to have more people working in one facility that we can. We've got snowplows down at one point, and nothing's going on with the police cars, we can somewhat shift them. But I'm just trying to get my mind wrapped around a $5.5 million facility. It seems like it's a lot, and I still have not heard, and I've been asking what equipment we are going to be able to salvage from the building we have now, and if we cannot, is new equipment included in the 5.5 million? I guess I want to get more specific, as close as we can to the correct amount of money and not overspend. I'm trying to be very cost conscious of this because it is a lot of money, and we are getting at least 2.3 million, maybe 3.3 million. I want to do the best that we can for what we are getting out of it and not have to have I don't want to have the Cadillac facility because I don't think we need it. I think we need a functional and up-to-date facility. And I think the employees would be happy to be working in a new facility that is very functional and has everything they need, but things that we're not going above and beyond now that we might be able to add in the future.
Thank you, Councilman. And nothing further. Braxton, I think you're hearing that the council would entertain a new facility, but more suggestions about how that facility will function, how it will be designed, how it will last 30 plus years for those things that we need might help council focus in on the functionality of a new facility if it's to that point that it won't be a quick fix. It'll be something that's been given a lot of thought with regards to its function and design. So I appreciate you bringing it to us, and I think there are some good comments and suggestions here that I would ask you and the city manager to sit and visit on a pretty regular basis on this, because there is a time concern, and I don't want to be pushed into or have us crushed into a time zone either, time crunch, but it becomes, obviously, like you said, it's been, 3 years or so? You've been working on this at least. So we've got to have some point where we say we have really done all the due diligence that we have, so that if it comes to a new facility, that we've done our best to make sure it's the best that we can get. So unless there are further questions, I thank you both for your presentation and the information. We now move to public comment. On public comment, we have two persons signed up. First person signed up is Mr. Henry McClure.
Get my email. Michelle. Good evening, Your Honor. Nice to see you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I want to make a case in point. I want to segue onto what I was going to talk about tonight. So, real estate is local in nature. Today, I'll bet you $1 I could get John Parker to move some stuff around in the old Sears Tire, Battery, and Auto, and I could lease that to you today. Get you in, have a place until you figure out what you're going to do. The old Penny Tire, Battery, and Auto is available down at the south end of White Lakes that could be modified. And I think what would be better for y'all is to let a developer build you a building, because you can keep your capital dry. Lease a building, put it on the tax rolls, pay your way around here. So you don't, it takes less burden on the the city from capital, and I think probably based on your bond rating, I could find some financing. But what the point I came to make tonight, a couple of them, one of them is, if you look at the real estate industry as, just as, I'm a business myself. And every one of the 720 licensed real estate people at the Sunflower Board of Realtors, they're a business. If we need something, they're independent contractors. So if we need something, we need a fancy graph or copies made, you know, we're out helping the economy. So what my dog in the hunt about economic development is that you freeze 720 businesses out of the real estate business with your contractor that does business today. Now, one thing about the Holiday building, that actually, you can add 3 floors on top of that. I've seen the plans. When Dennis Kinney owned it, I was looking at the plans, and he and I were trying to do some stuff, and you could build 3 levels on it. So just me being in the room tonight, not knowing much about real estate, I just happened to come up with some decent ideas. So if you take that times 720 people, you know, one guy over here, you know, he may be not selling a lot of houses or whatever, but he knows a friend. It's about your network and how hard your network works for you. Like your hotel guy, you guys are gonna love the hotel business, but yeah, you gotta go with that guy. Hey, I know people in this industry. The hospitality thing is, I don't know much about that other than renting a room. So the reason why I want to change the way you do business is because all I ever heard every time I get shut down from your contractor is, well, that doesn't create jobs. The guy digging the ditch doesn't matter, or the retailer that greets you. And it's been unfair. So you've all painted me into a corner, and I'm never going to give up. It's just kind of like I'm getting a little more momentum on this whole thing. But if we engage the community, there could be 720 new businesses that open up that could bring business to the city of Topeka. In closing, in the 7 seconds, I sent around a proposal for I think we need to redo how we do benefit districts.
Okay. Mr. McClure, would you want some more time?
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. Motion and a second. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. 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 Those opposed?
All right, 1 minute.
1 minute.
Your time's valuable. But we really need to do things differently in our community. And this really isn't the way to do it, to come down. You know, ever since I spent all that money with Cook, Flatt, and Strobel for all the engineering out at 32nd Street, I've been trying to get in and talk to you about it because I kind of thought that's where we're working. You know, Dana Kaye is a little mad at me. He wishes he never would have bought that land in Topeka. And I can handle the wrath of Dana Kaye. Been doing it for years. But hey, that guy used to play golf every Wednesday with Baron Hilton. And so the point is, it's not how hard you work, it's how hard your network works for you. So if we engage every real estate person in the city of Topeka to replace Go Topeka, because right now, what did you know and when did you know it? 39% of overhead, that's unfair. And are y'all in on it? All right, thank you. Have a good night. Chief, message delivered.
Okay. Second person we have is Mr. Lazone Graves.
I will take the easy route. Have some over here. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for your time. I did watch your other meeting about your hotel, and you own the hotel now. And so I'm just an ideas guy, floating an idea. I've come and spoke about transitional jobs for a good while. I believe that if you look into it, that is been an avenue that deals with workforce training, job training, really moving people who are at the bottom up by providing them employment opportunities that's mixed with training that leads to credentials and certifications. With a hotel, you have an industry. Now, I don't know what you're going to do and how, after listening, where you're going to go, but there's nothing wrong with putting this out for consideration, even if you have a private investor or owner. You know, some of these entry-level jobs, having worked in the Impact Avenues program, which is your city program, that helps people's homeless children and their parents go through classes and they get into housing. Our organization does the Employment 101 class for the last so many years. Some of those in that class, they have a job. You don't have to have a job to leave the program and get housing, but you do have to take all those individual classes to get housing. So I try to focus on those who are in the program, who have a job that they don't want to be at, it's just a job that they have, and those who don't have a job but who want a job. And so I try to figure out how you merge resources and opportunities. And with a hotel, which has some entry-level jobs, you know, I guess in a nutshell, how to make sure that there would be a job opportunity for those who graduate out of the Impact Avenues program who didn't have a job, so that if you're helping them get housing and stabilize their homes, stabilize their living, then there's something bigger and greater that comes out at the end. One thing about Impact Avenues being a partner with DCF and USD 501 is that these individuals have access to a variety of support services and resources, job training, job retention, assistance on buying tools and different things. I think that government has an opportunity to create formal programs like a transitional jobs program. And it may not just be at the hotel. There may be some other things that city jobs can do for 3, 6, 9 month program to make sure that they're not just getting the housing, but they are getting some credentials, things to help them close their establish their work history. It could be a feeder to other hotels or other industries. And because DCF and other are involved, then people are allowable to have a job coach and things of that nature there, someone who can work with them along the way. So I just don't want the city to think that they have to do everything by themselves, or Impact Avenue everything by themselves. From ground maintenance to what you see on the sheet there, there's numerous positions that are sort of entry level, you know, that could actually be a boost. Some of the training that I had mentioned there, you know, one of the things about getting a job is how many credentials you bring to the job when you're applying for it. People may not think that CPR and first aid and Narcan are important, but it's not just about credentials on that could help them get a job. They're probably learning some skills where they can save somebody's life. So I just want to throw this out here in consideration, since the city of Topeka owns a hotel, unless legal says that it's illegal to create a transitional jobs program, then that would be one thing. But if it is not, then maybe you would examine and explore, you know, is there any viability, you know, in the city having a functional transitional jobs program? The summer youth program is really a transitional jobs. So it's not that government can't do certain things. And like Henry, I'm gonna run out of a minute, and if I could just get 1 minute. Henry gone.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Proceed.
Thank you. What I didn't get to, and I just laid everything out there, Impact Avenues already has a whole bunch of partners that are already providing things. So it's not like it's just our organization or our class. There's a network there that's already, and trying to figure out how to make them work together. It's not going to fix all of the homelessness, but if you have a program that's helping kids and their families move forward, and we can get them a job for 3, 6, or 9 months with no guarantee of keeping the job, but it's going to transition you forward, I think that that would be a positive benefit. Finally, if you own the hotel, if the procurement will be going through the contracts and procurement, I don't know if it's legal, allowable, that you could set any of the contracting and the work that you're going to be doing on it, setting goals for your local diverse populations to get some of that money to do some of that work. Maybe even a local preference for businesses as well. So if you get some of these things started, maybe your owner who gets the building, maybe they will continue to adopt that transitional job. If not, you can move on from there. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Lizone. Okay. Move on now to announcements. Madam Clerk?
Okay, for the February 13th meeting, on the consent agenda, we have 2 information technology contracts, one for human resources and one for engineering services for professional services consultants. And that is it.
Is it?
That is it.
City Manager?
I have nothing to say.
Okay. All right, we'll go to the governing body members. Start with you, Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question. I'm sure everybody on the council in the last week or so has received emails and calls with a lot of information that is questionable, I guess, to say the least. But I do want to ask the city attorney a question, if I may. Is Topeka a sanctuary city? Has it ever been a sanctuary city? Is there any action forthcoming to make it a sanctuary city?
The city of Topeka is not a sanctuary city. We enforce all laws. The governing body has never passed any resolution trying to say it would ignore laws. And I am aware of no resolution that has been asked to be drafted that would make it that way.
Very good, thank you. I didn't think so. I just wanted to make that a matter of public record, as Joe Ledbetter would say. Quickly, I talked a little bit about this upcoming CIP, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time tonight, but in the next few weeks, I think we have opportunities to look at parts of town where housing growth can happen with reasonable city infrastructure expenditures. I think we have some projects right now that we probably don't need at this point, but we have other things that are on the cusp in really in all parts of town. But, you know, there was a move a few months ago, maybe a year ago or so, to look out east where the spillover from the battery plant, the Panasonic plant, is going to reach Topeka. There's no question about it. Lawrence is looking at how to expand west of K10. That's not too far from the city limits of East Topeka, and there are areas out there that would be ideal for residential development. We just need to figure out, in some cases, how to get infrastructure there. I'm sure Councilwoman Ortiz remembers some of the struggles we went through when back when the Oakland Expressway went in. Everybody thought that was going to start that movement, but unfortunately there's utility things that need to happen. But I think we're in a position where we can make a lot of that happen. We have some subdivisions that development has started. The city's put a lot of money or backed a lot of infrastructure in those areas that we need to take a look at. So we'll be talking more about that hopefully in the next few weeks. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few quick things. We've sort of had an interesting 3 weeks. We went from a boil advisory to a pothole emergency to, as Councilmember Dobler indicated, news outlets that reported things quite erroneously, which led to many upset people who didn't quite have all the facts, which I hope we've been able to spread as fast as we can about that program. But through all that, I mean, I'm elected. I expect the conversations and the emails and the whatever. But in each of those, we had many different staff members throughout this entire city who took the brunt of each of those, dealing with the boil advisory on the ground, fixing that problem, working overtime and spending the whole week dedicated public works staff out on the streets for the pothole emergency, emails flooding certain people here in City Hall as the other issue came up this weekend, They all did their jobs admirably. They have still more work to do. Yes, we know, potholes, we got it, and we're working on it. But I just want to give a shout out to all of them, because that involved hundreds of our city employees, not just a select few, but hundreds of them who, through this last 3 weeks, have been sort of thrown into that along with the rest of us. So just a thank you to all of them for doing that work on our behalf. I want to say thank you to Dan Warner from planning, who today showed up at the Capitol and gave really good testimony on a really awful bill that would impact our ability to do some zoning. But it helps when folks like Dan, instead of just Amanda or me or even the city manager, show up and do it, because Dan knows what he's talking about, and he's a different face and a different voice. And that's good for legislators to see, not the same old people. So I'm glad when folks like Dan step up and are willing to say, sure. I told Amanda today, I said, after dealing with us now for a while, the legislature's nothing. He can go stand up there and deal with it. So thank you to Dan for doing that today. And then lastly, it was a Topeka Day at the Capitol. It was a good event. We take for granted, I think, how many legislators come to Topeka and actually don't know anything about Topeka. And so I think days like today helped to get, we had businesses and vendors in the buildings just showing them different things Topeka has to offer. Various folks who went and talked to legislators. So I appreciate the partnership setting that up and giving Topekans an opportunity to talk to non-Topeka legislators about what's actually going on in the city. I think it benefits us all in the long term. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Hofer.
I just want to, sorry, I'm battling allergies. Tomorrow night at 5:30, I believe at the Holiday Building, there's going to be a informational meeting on the River Road, I believe, mill and overlay. There's going to be some full depth work on it, but because of its location, it's a frequent path for a lot of people. It's going to disrupt a lot of people getting to work, getting home, getting anywhere. So if you're interested in learning about what's happening about it, come to the Holiday Building tomorrow night at 5:30. And I have to say, some of these meetings that I've been to for the different projects have been great, because items have been brought up that somebody hadn't thought about, or people hadn't realized exactly what's happening. And it's really important, if you get a notice and it's something that's going to affect you, please go to the meetings. There's several coming up as we start the road projects this year. There's going to be a lot of them coming up around town, so please go and find out what's happening in your neighborhood. And if you've got any questions, write us, call us, and ask questions. It may only affect you for 6 weeks or longer. Today, I just found out about a project going in my neighborhood. It's going to be closing, and I should probably say this one too. The intersection of Danbury and Cedar Crest is going to be closed for 3 weeks for a repair. So anybody that comes off the Danbury exit will only be able to turn left and go into Prospect Hills. They will not be able to come into West Hills at all. We're worried about truck traffic coming off the interstate by fluke, that they decide, oh, there's an exit, I need to get off here. They come in our neighborhood all the time and they get lost. So anytime a project comes up, ask questions, go to the meeting. It will benefit you, and you can help your neighbors understand what's going on. So thank you to Public Works for getting both projects going. And if anybody has any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hiller.
It's interesting. I thought I'd make some comments on a theme that has already come up as we go around this council. I think all of us, I wanted to start by just complimenting Sylvia Davis for the excellent job that she did in talking about an issue that could have become inflammatory or panicky for citizens. And I appreciate how she handled that today. We've had some flaming issues lately, right? The hotel, water, potholes, homeless, many others. And what we've seen is that they've gone around, particularly social media, emails to each of us, emails to the whole governing body. And what we've learned is that a small bit of information or worry on somebody's part can get really out of hand. What I wanted to do is suggest to the public, what I have found in all the years I've been on council is no matter how inflammatory that email is, if I respond and go, well, did you know that X or Y, and what exactly was it you were concerned about, that we're able to work through that issue, get the facts out, and be mutually informed. To me, it's really valuable to know if people were worried, if somehow the communication didn't happen up front or they're worried to hear that so we know. But also it's always reassuring at how valuable that conversation is, whether it's in person or by email, sometimes social media as well, to get the word out. And so what I wanted to do is suggest to the public that if something's flying around and it seems just unthinkable that the city or whatever unit of government would have let that happen, there's a good chance that it's not so. And encourage people to write and ask a question. Simply say, I heard this, what about? And I've had some of those on these recent issues, and it's been really valuable for that individual as well as for our communication. So again, thanks to staff who field them all and who are working to get the word out straight up in the first place. But our citizens, hopefully they can get hold of either all of us. The mayor's office always has staff, city manager's office has staff, the council office has staff, and then we all get the emails as well to governing body or council@topeka.org. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Valdivia Acala.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to correct, and thank you, Michelle, for bringing that up, but the meeting tomorrow, the public meeting on the work that's going to be going on Northeast River Road, Crane Street to Emmett Street, which River Road, both Councilwoman Hiller and myself share, it's actually taking place at Oakland Community Center. And so that's information that is on the public meeting schedule, and it's at 801 Northeast Poplar Street. Right when that came out, and again today, all social media outlets in North Topeka and Oakland or anywhere else I could find that would accept the information, I've been putting it on. So we're hoping to get good attendance, because with the duration of the project, it's going to be very important that people attend. And I think that what it does is this speaks volumes to Braxton and his staff because of their willingness to not only hold meetings at holiday, but to actually go out to where the people are, which is the definition of true outreach. So I do hope we get a lot of folks there, because I think that there's obviously going to be a great deal of concerns, especially in Oakland and people from North Topeka and Oakland that move back and forth along River Road, but hence the need for the meetings. So I just wanted to make that correction. Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz. Councilman Banks.
No announcement, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Kell.
All right, so this Sunday we have the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Please remember, do not fire off guns, do not fire off fireworks. You know, so many people the last couple of years have fired off guns into the air, and remember, what goes up must come down. So please do not fire off your handguns, rifles, whatever, into the air just to celebrate. It's a dangerous situation, so remember that, and have fun this weekend, and designate a driver or use a rideshare service if you have too much fun watching the game.
How about arrows? Can you shoot arrows?
As long as you catch them on the way out.
Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Since Councilpeople Dobler, Hiller, and Duncan addressed it at the same, I will refrain from fishing in an empty well. All I will say is that it's incredibly important for people to reach out if they have questions before they let a media company stir up their emotions, as it's literally designed to do. They don't know Topeka, nor care of its successes, so please reach out to us for facts. All the governing body ran with the understanding that we would be a route for people to complain, and we understand that. Just talk to us first. That will save you a lot of strife. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Marcus, I didn't have that understanding that I was a complaint box, so I just want to make that.
Yeah, before we move into an executive session, which we do need, I don't want to belabor the point either. I think enough has been said by this governing body to make it clear to the citizens that we serve that we are an open government, and that if you have questions, ask for facts. Don't assume things and start a train of false misinformation that will hurt your city. It will hurt your city. Take the time to get the facts. I applaud our local stations for correcting any errors that might have been broadcast, and I appreciate the citizens of Topeka knowing that our city is taking their welfare as a priority, and to not let others dictate to us what we are thinking. So I'll go on from that. There is a need for one executive session. City Attorney?
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 45 minutes to discuss employer-employee negotiations related to one or more unions as justified by KSA 7543-19B3. The meeting will resume in the City Council chambers. The following staff are necessary to assist the governing body in its deliberations: Acting City Manager Neinstedt and other staff he deems necessary.
Okay, thank you. Heard the need for executive session. Is there a motion? Motion to go into executive session. Second. Second by Councilman Cal. Oh, sure, I know where she's going to go. Okay, so all those in favor, we know, of going to executive session, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We will go into executive session after taking a quick 10-minute break. Okay. We have concluded our executive session. No action has been taken. No further business coming before this body. This meeting is adjourned.